Welcome to Indiana News Desk. I'm Joe Wren. Hoosier farmers and environmentalists are waiting to see if President-elect Donald Trump will follow through on a campaign promise to eliminate some clean water regulations. Now, Trump says on his website he wants to do away with the revised Waters of the U.S. rule, which dictates what waters the Environmental Protection Agency can regulate. As Barbara Brosier reports, experts say it's not that simple.
When you drive through rural Boone County, the landscape doesn't change much. Mile after mile, you come across farms like this one, which Don Lamb runs with his family.
The field behind us was a seed corn field, so it was a field that was raised that will be bagged for seed to sell to farmers next year.
The Lambs grow corn and soybeans on about 8,500 acres near Lebanon, and much of their success depends on two factors: soil and water quality.
Conserving water and using water to its fullest is really important to us.
Lamb says he works hard to prevent erosion on his farm and plants cover crops to retain water in his soil during the winter. He worries some of his daily activities would be regulated closely by the EPA under a revised version of its Waters of the U.S. rule, which is currently on hold as it makes its way through the court system. The rule expands the definition of waterways regulated by the EPA to include tributaries, which it defines as any waterway that has a bed, bank, and high water mark. Lamb says the definition is broad, making it unclear what features on his farm would require permits, and he doesn't know what that permitting process would involve or cost.
It is scary to think that any bit of water that goes across your farm or your property anywhere could be regulated by the federal government, simply because that is, to me, that's an awfully big overreach in what the federal government is supposed to do.
So Lamb's hoping President-elect Donald Trump will deliver on his promise to eliminate the rule. The Indiana Farm Bureau also wants to see changes to waters of the U.S., but says it may not be as easy as Trump makes it sound.
The reality is that they just can't say, well, we're not going to do it. There's a final rule, and they will have to either start a new rulemaking to amend or withdraw that rule.
There are three ways change could come about. The federal appeals court could rule on a case filed by Indiana and more than a dozen other states that challenges the rule. That court already placed a stay on the new interpretation of Waters of the U.S. Congress could also take action, or Trump could issue an executive order asking the EPA to withdraw the rule.
The administration, what you're going to see, they're going to have to take a step back. They're going to have to look at this particular issue, once the transition team's in place and people are paying attention.
Talk of doing away with the revised definition of waters of the U.S. has environmental groups that support it worried. The EPA says the revised rule was drafted to improve and simplify the process of identifying waters protected under the Clean Water Act.
The rule is legally sound, it's scientifically sound, and it is legally and scientifically sound because they took all of that care in writing it.
Indra Frank is a policy advisor at the Hoosier Environmental Council. She says the rule isn't a burden to farmers because it provides agricultural exemptions, and its focus is on keeping all water clean.
We certainly don't want our rivers and streams to be polluted, right? We get drinking water from our rivers and streams, and we've seen what happens in Flint, Michigan when you try to take your drinking water from a polluted river. It just does not work.
If you stand right here and look, there's a real small swale that goes across that field right there.
Back on the Lamb farm, Don points out a narrow path in the middle of a field that fills with water on rainy days. He can't stop thinking about all of the what-ifs.
To me, that's an example of an area. I'm not sure how they would regulate that.
It's unclear when the courts could weigh in on waters of the U.S. So for now, all Lamb and the rest of the country can do is wait to see which of Trump's stances are rhetoric and which will become reality. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Barbara Brosier.
The revised version of Waters of the U.S. doesn't just impact the agricultural industry. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce's senior vice president said in a statement the rule makes it more difficult to create opportunities and jobs. The EPA says in a statement on its website it believes the revised rule is consistent with current law.